January 19th, 1981, Los Angeles, California. 9 floors up, a man in an army field jacket has one leg over a window ledge, and 45 minutes of police negotiation have gotten nowhere. Below, a crowd is gathering on the sidewalk, and someone in that crowd makes a call that nobody expects to work. 20 minutes later, a car pulls up, and the most famous face in the world steps out and looks up at that window, like he's looking at an old friend. What history books won't tell you is how ordinary that Tuesday started. Not the standoff. That part made the evening news. What almost nobody remembers is who made the call that brought Muhammad Ali there, and what he actually said once he got close enough to be heard. Because this isn't a story about a boxer showing off. It's a story about a man everyone thought they understood, doing something nobody expected, for a stranger nobody else could reach. But to understand why Ali was the one who could reach that window, you need to understand the road that got him there. By 1981, Muhammad Ali was 39 years old and only months away from his final professional fight, a loss he shouldn't have taken, against a much younger man, in a ring he probably should have already left behind. His body had absorbed more punishment than most fighters ever survive, and the early signs of what would later be diagnosed as Parkinson's syndrome were already showing in his speech and his hands. He was no longer the fastest heavyweight in the world. But he was still, without question, the most recognized human face on the planet, known in villages that had never seen a television and cities that had never seen a Black American in person. That fame had cost him plenty to build. In 1967, at the height of his career, Ali refused induction into the United States Army during the Vietnam War, citing his religious beliefs as a Muslim. The government stripped him of his heavyweight title and his boxing license. Courts convicted him of draft evasion. For 3.5 years, during what should have been the physical peak of his career, Ali couldn't fight professionally in the United States at all. Much of the country called him a traitor. He was booed, threatened, and treated by many Americans as an enemy of his own country, not because of anything he'd done to another person, but because of a decision about his own body and his own conscience. The Supreme Court eventually overturned his conviction in 1971, and Ali went on to reclaim the heavyweight title, becoming one of the most beloved athletes in American history by the end of the decade. But the years lost to that fight, and the men who did serve in Vietnam and came home to a country that didn't know what to do with them, stayed close to something in Ali. He never forgot that his refusal to go had cost him little compared to what many of the men who did go came home carrying. Which brings us to a man named Joseph Kelly, 26 years old, a veteran who had served 2 tours during the war Ali refused to join. What exactly happened to Kelly during his service, and in the years after, isn't fully documented in the public record, the way most private struggles aren't. What is documented is that on January 19th, 1981, Kelly climbed out onto the ledge of a 9th-floor window of a building on Wilshire Boulevard in Los Angeles and told the police officers who arrived that he did not intend to come back inside. The Los Angeles Police Department did everything by the book. A trained crisis negotiator arrived. Officers cleared the street below and brought in an inflatable air cushion, standard procedure for exactly this kind of situation. For nearly an hour, they talked, and Kelly stayed on that ledge, unmoved. The wind strong enough that even standing there took a kind of steadiness that should have terrified him more than it seemed to. Someone in the gathering crowd, accounts differ on exactly who, remembered that Ali kept a residence not far from downtown Los Angeles and made a call. It reached his agent, who reached Ali directly. Ali did not ask for details. He got in a car and headed toward Wilshire Boulevard. When Ali arrived, police were reportedly hesitant. This was not standard protocol. An untrained civilian, however famous, walking into an active crisis situation. But Kelly had specifically expressed frustration with the negotiator, with what felt to him like scripted, procedural language coming from someone who had never lived through what he had lived through. Ali asked for a chance. The department, out of options, agreed. What happened next is described consistently across the news reports and first-hand accounts from that day. Ali didn't shout up at Kelly from the street. He got as close as the building would allow, and he spoke to him not as a celebrity performing for a crowd, but the way one man speaks to another when he actually wants to be heard. He told Kelly he understood something about being asked to give everything to a country that didn't always give much back. He told him people needed him, that his life still had purpose left in it, that whatever war had done to him inside, it hadn't taken away his worth. He kept talking, patient, unhurried, refusing to rush the moment the crowd below clearly wanted him to. It took Ali roughly 20 minutes of steady, direct conversation before Kelly's posture changed, before the tension in his shoulders eased enough for the officers nearby to sense the moment had turned. Kelly climbed back through the window on his own. No cushion was needed, no further intervention. Ali reportedly stayed with him afterward, sitting with him as paramedics arrived, refusing to simply hand him off to strangers and leave. Here's what nobody saw coming, and what almost never gets mentioned when this story is retold. Ali didn't hold a press conference about it. He didn't release a statement. Reporters who tried to get a quote from him afterward got very little, because as far as Ali was concerned, there was nothing about that afternoon that was about him. He'd gone home. The story only survived because police officers, paramedics, and bystanders who were there talked about what they witnessed, not because Ali ever tried to make sure anyone knew. Think about what that says about the moment itself. A man who had spent his entire adult life as arguably the most photographed human being alive, who understood better than almost anyone how to use a camera and a headline, chose in this one instance to walk away from both. He didn't need Joseph Kelly's story to build his own legend. His legend was already built. What he offered that afternoon wasn't performance. It was just presence, the willingness to show up for a stranger and stay until the moment passed. Because somewhere inside the loudest, most famous man in the world, there was still a part of him that understood what it felt like to be misunderstood, to be told by your own country that you didn't belong, and to need just one person to say otherwise. That's the story underneath the story, not the boxer who could talk anyone into anything with the same charisma that filled arenas. A man who once lost 3.5 years of his career and the goodwill of half his country because he refused to go to a war, standing on a Los Angeles sidewalk in 1981, spending 20 of the most important minutes of a stranger's life making sure that stranger knew somebody still thought he mattered. If something in this story caught you off guard the way it caught me, if you sat there thinking you already knew everything about Muhammad Ali and realized you didn't know the half of it, do me a favor and hit that like button. It costs you nothing, and it helps a small channel trying to dig up the parts of history that got buried on purpose. Subscribe if you want more of this, because we are just getting started. And there are more quiet moments like this one, nobody photographed and almost nobody remembers, waiting to be told. This is what real character looks like when nobody's watching. See you in the next one.